So very quickly, what we wanted to talk about is that I want you to think back about I think it was 7 or 8 years ago when we first heard the Trailblazer districts were beginning to try one-on-one devices, bring your own device programs. That was just 8 years ago. And think about all the things we have done since. Like we really have, K-12 education has moved significantly. Now almost every district I know has some kind of a technology implementation where the students have the devices either in the classroom or they even take them home. Now it's like an expectation that we are using technology to teach and learn, but also informing our students about how to use technology to be expert users to learn and produce in the 21st century and to be competitive for college and career, right? So think about how fast that has happened. And what's happening right now is that after delivering devices and thinking about what apps to use for homeworks and assignment, communications, assessments, etc., we're actually beginning to have the expectations that we need that data from the technology to come back to us in a way that we can act upon it just in time. We need the data immediately so we can move the students that can move forward, support the students that need further supports. We need that data to see what's trending, what's happening, and how to differentiate instruction, divide the students in groups, and address the teaching and learning methods that each individual student has. So this conversation is about what's next and our expectations of technology to truly begin to transform the teaching and learning space, and what are some of the tools that are needed for that. So when we say making a teacher's job easier, we don't mean that just making the same job that we did 10 years ago, but we mean the new job we have today, which is addressing increasingly diverse populations in our districts, addressing every single student because it's not okay that anybody's left behind, addressing the dropout problems, addressing the unique problems that a teacher has today in K-12 education, which requires a lot more than what we were expected to do just a decade ago. So one of the things technology can do for teachers is it can help us by approaching the problem in a systemic way. And when we say systemic way, we don't mean just technology. A systemic approach means the people and the technology working together in a coherent way to solve difficult tasks. And so reduce administrative burden on teachers. I mean, this is the one thing that I think we all agree on. Teachers are just asked to do more with less. We just continue to drop on the teachers. And so it's about time that when we think of solutions, we think of what can teachers do to improve learning, but not necessarily add more burden to their tasks. And to give teachers and students the tools that they need, the feedback, the constant feedback and information they need to make learning more effective, and what can technology do for us in that arena. So, I'm sure that all of you have some version of this. This was the Houston Independent School District Planning Guides provided by our curriculum department. These were the guides that instructed and helped our teachers prepare their lesson plans. When Houston adopted its learning, we moved from a static planning guide to a more dynamic curriculum vision. You can see it here. In this dynamic curriculum, you have all the components in the planning guide to create a lesson, but then all the resources are linked to specific learning objectives in the planner. So automatically, when you add a resource into that lesson, that resource is immediately linked to those learning objectives. These kind of things that technology can do for us make things a little easier for us. So here's like a blow-up version of that. You have a lesson comparing ratios and percents and fractions. And you can see here, it says add a resource. And you have the learning objectives, or you can add learning objectives. It has the description, etc. The moment you add a resource there, that resource is automatically linked to that lesson and those learning standards. So how does this happen, and where do you add the resource from? So here is the itslearning learning object repository. In this repository, we already have pre-populated open educational resources from Guru. In addition to that, It's Learning has other partnerships like Novation or Discovery Education, so those contents can be added as well and can be searched directly from inside the library without having to go out to an additional platform. But in addition to this, It's Learning is able to literally ingest content by all the major publishers, and it can ingest all this content as a complete textbook, so you can have the textbook with its scope and sequence and its units in the exact order that you have it for your course. Or it can also ingest the content where you can find different parts of the book by searching with keywords and learning standards. In other words, the books have been divided into chunks, and each chunk has a unique URL that identifies that section that you're looking for. It's like looking in the back of the book in the index page, searching for a term and finding all the pages where that term is covered in the book. So what happens with that is that when you do a search in the library, you put a topic, and then you get, the library instantly populates all the different pieces from multiple publishers and open educational resources that match that term. And if the list is too long, you can further define it and refine it by adding a learning objective. Here on the left, you have the criteria to fine-tune your search. So you can reduce the search by adding learning objectives, grade levels, language, or type of file. Like, is this a video? Is this text? Is this an activity? Is it a quiz, etc. And as you can see, again, using the magnifying glass, when you roll over each section, for example, here's an algebra quiz about algebra, and the learning objectives pop up when you roll over. So the teacher can very quickly see, and then if you click on that particular learning object, you can preview it and decide if you like it, if it's good for your lesson, and you can, with one click, add it to your planner. So what we're doing here is we are creating a very easy way in which when the teacher creates the lesson plan, she's also doing all this alignment automatically without any additional effort. So Mr. Torres is teaching fractions today, and he knows that Maria is sort of a self-directed learner, so he provides her with the instruments she needs and instructions, and she will follow her own pathway, working in a group of independent learners. But he also knows that Juan needs a little bit of visual material because he does that better than reading, and he needs to collaborate with other students, so he can assign them with different materials for the same lesson, and they both learn fractions. So how do we do this? It's Learning ingests something, so it's a book, imagine your algebra book. The Pearson might package it as a common cartridge, and the whole package comes into the It's Learning library with meta tags that align all the pieces of content to specific learning objectives. And you can search for the book in its entirety, you can open the whole book, or you can search for a little part of the book in the library. So this ability to search for discrete parts in each publication is what allows you to differentiate or personalize instruction. The Think Common cartridge is a different packaging system, but instead of ingesting the entire content, It's Learning just ingests a list of URL links, essentially. And the content is still residing in the publisher's server. This is something that publishers like a lot because they like to be in control of their intellectual property, right? So the Think Common cartridge is another form of packaging that allows us to find specific points of content from multiple publishers to drop them all in one lesson. And now you have the ability to even do universal design for learning if that's what you need for your class, right? In addition to that, of course, It's Learning can provide single sign-on links in the form of LTI, but it also has partnership with Clever if that's what you're using, so you can have your Clever portal or your district portal inside It's Learning. The teacher, in essence, logs into the It's Learning platform, and she or he does everything from inside that platform without any additional passwords or login IDs. And now we're beginning to tell the story of how does this planner that is aligned to learning standards, how does this help the teacher get information so she can do response to interventions, she can move some people faster, she can provide additional supports to other students. Teachers get follow-up and reports. Here's the gradebook. We will show you that later. But learning objectives progress report. When you click there, the teacher gets a list of all the learning objectives in her classroom. And when she clicks on one of them, she gets a report that says 2 students have not met this objective and 28 of them have mastered this objective. And then you can add a personalized task. And when a teacher clicks that link, the system automatically shows who are the students who have not been able to master that learning standard, and it creates an automatic list that gets populated based on the learning standard and the objects we have in the library. Now the teacher can modify this and customize it as the students need it. She can sit with the student and make decisions about which one of these she's going to use, or if she's going to use additional tools that are already in the library that the system has already produced for her. So as soon as the teacher is happy with the list that she has completed or he has completed, the system creates an automated message for the student and populates the name of the student. The teacher can modify the message, and she can also add an additional activity. So after the student has followed up with the lessons, you can provide an additional quiz or test or an assignment to see if there's progress. She sends up, and the students get the information. And this is also very interesting because we want, when we say we want 21st century learners, we talk about active learning and voice and choice and informed students and students learning to learn. Those critical skills that we think they will need to be adaptive and successful in this century. The student can see her progress in the course. Not only can she see her scores, she can see, or he can see, what are the assignments they have submitted recently, what are their grades in all the assignments and assessment they've taken so far in the course. They can tell exactly where they are standing in the course. They can see how many of the objectives they have mastered and not mastered. More importantly, their parents and their teachers can see this card as well. And the student can communicate with her parents and with her teachers in this personalized card. The teacher, with this, all this follows from that lesson planner that is aligned to standards. Because the lesson planner is aligned to standards, the teacher can see in her grade book each one of the lessons that are assigned for this particular time, and then she can see what's the percentage of mastery for each of the learning standards in each lesson. All in one look. In one view, she can see all her students and how many of them have mastered standards and to what degree so far in her course. In addition, the teacher can also see the blocks that are in blue are standards for which this teacher has added lessons and materials, content and activities. And the ones that are whited out, this means I haven't designed yet lessons for those, and I haven't added any resources to my course that cover those learning standards. So the teacher even gets help designing and making sure that she's covering all the learning standards that she needs to address. Now I am going to hand this to Bob.
So the library certainly can help make a teacher's job easier because it contains loads of digital content that's all been tagged to standards. So would you agree that one of a teacher's roles is planning for instruction? That library can really serve as a way to support that teacher by finding those appropriate resources. And then you saw that the library plays a part in when teachers are monitoring progress and students are struggling, the library steps in as a way to support a teacher to recommend some content to address those performance needs. So the other big role of teachers that hasn't gone away 100 years ago, 100 years in the future, is that you've got to engage and communicate with kids on a regular basis. Would you agree? I mean, that's a tough teaching job. Our platform can help a teacher with that engagement and communication as well. When a learner logs on to itslearning, they land at their personal home page, and that home page, and this is a screenshot of it, it identifies an aggregate of all of the courses that a student is enrolled in, and all of the news, all of the tasks, assignments that have been assigned to that student based on his or her enrollment. That's a quick way to communicate to kids, hey, there are some things that you're responsible for completing. Along with that, itslearning is very, very flexible. Some of you in the room are some of our customers. Certainly the dashboards and course overviews, very, very flexible. The platform can be used with kids in the secondary level, for example, strong readers. But think about those emergent readers. The platform is flexible enough to really create views for all levels. These images down here represent screenshots of courses that are set up for those primary grade kids. Less text, more graphics that students can actually click on. And then another nice feature of the platform, I always think about the importance of hooking kids to start off a lesson. Some of you who are old like me remember Madeline Hunter, and she talked about that anticipatory set. In every course, a teacher has an option to send bulletins out to students that they see front and center, and you can turn comments on. So you can begin the instruction by placing things in a bulletin and engaging kids before you actually start teaching in the classroom. If you're doing flipped learning and blended learning, that bulletin becomes an important tool. So just some tools that are part of engaging and communicating. Beatriz shared with you our planner. What's new this year for back to school in our planner is all of the work that a teacher does to build his or her lesson plans by adding resources and activities gets translated for the student view to be a learning path, a play plan. And they simply click on start, and all of that instruction that's been scaffolded and sequenced by the teacher will show up for the student. So they can follow the same flow that was intended by the teacher who actually designed it. Am I making sense? For those of you using the platform that's new for back to school, I think you'll enjoy it a whole lot. Promoting student engagement and active learning. I mean, this screen really says a lot just by looking at all those icons. They represent all of the various ways that you can, as a teacher, build instructional content. We have all of the Microsoft Office products built into the platform, so you can immediately create Word, PowerPoint, Excel documents if you're using Office Mix. But you also have the ability to create engaging activities through assignments, through discussions, surveys, and polls. All of these tools are there ready for the teacher to start to build some active learning that the students can become engaged with. Finally, would you agree, that making a teacher's job easier also involves helping them to improve their practice, give them new skills and knowledge. There's no reason why itslearning can't serve the adult learning needs of a district as well. Many of our customers use the platform for their professional development as well. So everything from compliance trainings like Section 504 or hazardous liquids, any of those things that you know that your staff has to go through, why not build them on the platform? That way the students are now the teachers, and they're getting a firsthand experience as to what life is like for their students as they build curriculum in their classes. Just like you can align academic content standards to lessons, in the professional development path, you're able to add professional development standards and start to build courses for teachers that start to move them in their progression towards mastery of professional practice. Discussions we mentioned, conferences, the e-portfolios and blog feature, it's native to the application. It allows teachers to build portfolios, to blog, to make their blogs public. So think of teachers who want to share out beyond the school walls to their parents and community. They have that ability to do that as well. And then we also have these mentor-mentee-based individualized learning plans. All of these together really fit into that overall topic that we're presenting on right now about making teachers' jobs easier.
So in a nutshell, we have many tasks that teachers, parents, students, and district leaders can do. We're going to talk about the district leaders, the kind of data they get here in a second. And we've discussed briefly what teachers can do and what parents can do, which keeps them more engaged in their students' education. But what's interesting here, because we talk about active learners and having the students have voice and choice and increasingly taking charge of their learning and maybe learning metacognition, learning how they learn and becoming experts and understanding how to learn, is that the students, you could give them access to the students to the digital library. You can actually have the students perform the searches by keywords and standards in the library. And then you could have a discussion with them about which of the materials they found in their search are most appropriate for the particular lesson at hand. So we're also teaching them how to be active digital citizens in the world where data is constantly changing and more information is being added to the daily tasks that we have. So you're teaching them and preparing them to be adaptive, flexible, and to survive in this new world where they will have to learn forever. And we are having to learn forever, but that's going to be even more true for them as the world continues to change. So very briefly, we would like to encourage you to go back to the platform and click on that activity on the top of your list. And maybe talk briefly in your tables, how can these tools support teachers? We've discussed how these may save time for teachers as they try to develop or create a 21st century learning environment for the students. Maybe you have some other ideas of what are the things teachers can do with these tools that will make their teaching and learning more effective and also save them time or make things easier for them. We'll give you a couple of minutes, and then we would like to hear from one or two of you.
So some of our colleagues from the Boston office are here. A fine gentleman, Ernesto Ayala, lives here in the wonderful state of Texas. He happens to have a microphone. Micah Young as well with the wonderful purple shirt on. She lives here in Texas as well. We really would like to hear from you. Ernesto has a microphone. Some of you I know like to have a mic in front of you. If you'd like to respond and maybe share some of the things you talked about. Thank you.
I was discussing that I was comparing ours system to y'all's system, and ours is outdated. Like I was discussing how their usually able to locate. So that's what.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
I'm curious to hear the university perspective, so I'm going to put someone on the spot here.
Thank you.
Well, we were having just a little discussion. What was kind of wondering, we're really interested to see kind of how like that group engagement comes in, because one of the things that we have as a challenge at the university, and it would be a challenge for PD as well, is as soon as you say discussion forum or like writing a post, there's this kind of ugh, you know, like, and so just really interested to continue to see kind of how that kind of grouping and interactive, where this supports the in-classroom discussions, because that thread behind, like for professional development of sharing is important, but also that personal connection is so great. And so look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, we'll show you some ways that you can connect several of the tasks that you can build in the platform together. So think about an assignment that is asking learners to watch some sort of media, listen to some media, and then engage in some sort of a discussion about what they viewed. You're able to combine those two things, and what you're also able to do is to align that type of activity to some learning objectives that you hope that they start to develop as a result of participating in that assignment. Does that make sense?
Can I ask a follow-up question? Okay, so the follow-up question is a lot of teachers are going to kind of live guest speakers, you know, Skype in the classroom, mystery Skype, that sort of thing. And is there an opportunity to kind of integrate in maybe like a link or a live feed that then you could have everyone engaging with and kind of back channeling?
Yes, so we have built in, native to the application, a conferencing tool that allows for that synchronous conversations to occur. Yep. So you can raise hands, you can pass the baton to others that are part of that conference to take on the role of leading. Sure.
But you can also add additional apps into the platform that sync into the platform. And so Bob is going to talk about a little bit about additional apps that can be used within the platform. So you're not even restricted, even though this platform has a lot of communication tools and engagement tools that Bob is going to discuss. There's also third-party tools that can be embedded.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that was our first little section. Thank you for completing that discussion thread. I failed to say this, but George will be happy for me to announce it. So every time you hit one of those discussion threads, we're entering you into today's raffle. So there are, I think, 4 discussions entirety, and then the reflection as you leave. So you're going to be entered 5 times into today's raffle. If you're interested in what we're giving away today at the booth, George and Julie can share that with you on your way out. So our next section, this idea of 21st century skills and their competencies, certainly an important part of a teacher's life, certainly something we want students to aspire to. So want to start off with just some quotes that are up here. Some of these folks I'm sure you see as being familiar. You got Dewey up there in the upper left-hand corner. He was no stranger to telling and expanding to teachers about the importance of preparing students for the future. But there are folks even today that are speaking that. Tony Wagner, Alvin Toffler, Alan November spoke yesterday at a lunch event that we had. He's speaking again today at a lunch event here in this room. He says something interesting. He says, teachers need to stop saying hand it in and start saying publish it instead. You know, that requires a very modern learning management system that allows students to create. I'll show you some ways that students can create on the platform. This one's incredible. Technology won't replace teachers, but teachers who use technology will probably replace teachers who do not. At itslearning, we really believe that. Our platform is not meant to replace teachers. Our platform is meant to support teachers in the craft that they're engaged in by giving them tools to help them be efficient. The tools that we're sharing today are just a sampling of them, but that quote really resonates with me, and I think there's one.
Yeah, there's a couple that I love in this. The first one is, if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn. You know, for too many decades, the kids that just don't learn the traditional way, we have been leaving them behind. That's not okay with any of us anymore. We are really fighting today, like never before, to make sure that every child gets a chance to learn so they can have the future they want. And then the quote by Alvin Toffler, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Right? How many of you have found that true in your own careers? And it's not for our students, it would be even more intense, right? We are constantly learning, we're never done.
So you all are familiar with the 4 C's.
5.
Lots of different organizations recognize and identify 21st century skills. This screen is real small for you all to see. Again, it's in the course. Feel free to download it. What Beatriz and I are going to do here for this section is show you some aspects of the itslearning platform that can help a teacher promote 21st century learning and can help a student develop skills for the 21st century workforce, for college and career readiness. So let's start with communication. You know, both written and oral language. Some features of the platform. First and foremost, there's a very modern and robust rich text editor. That rich text editor allows a user, a teacher, a student to really create some things using the editor tools. You're all familiar with how to text format, bold, italicize, but there are many more features to the rich text editor. You know, sometimes students want to communicate with emojis. The library sitting behind the rich text editor is loaded with emojis. Some of us text, and instead of words, we type in a cute picture to express our meaning. Those are available immediately for teachers and students. Embedded in that rich text editor is the ability to build media that didn't exist before. So you can use your device and create a video presentation. So you can give video and audio directions as a teacher, or maybe as a student, instead of typing back a response in text, you use that audio and video tool to submit your answer. So those capabilities are there. Certainly, would you agree that's 21st century types of skills that we want our students to do? And then I won't go through all of them, but there is a nice feature. It's an embed tool in the rich text editor. Anyone use Prezi or Padlet or Blend Space, ThingLink, any of those free Web 2.0 tools that are out there? When you content create on there, you really are becoming a creator of unique content. The embed tool allows you to immediately grab that URL of that piece of content that you created and place it in the planner, place it in an activity. So now teachers can create a Prezi, for example, that engages kids a bit more, and then can turn around and ask students to submit something via Prezi as well. And that embed tool allows them to immediately drop it into their assignment submission. We mentioned the app library. itslearning comes preloaded with some apps, but you're able to add others. So Zoom is an example. Zoom is a digital whiteboard and more robust conferencing tool. A lot of our customers have added that app to the library so that it's readily available to any of the users on the platform. The app library through Lti Linking is quite a simple process. Notifications, a messaging system that's native to the platform is another important feature that supports communication in that 21st century skill. Students have immediate access to message their teacher, to message their peers, to message groups that they're participating in, all directly in the platform. Discussion threads, conferencing we've mentioned, portfolios and blogs. So, Communications over collaboration. Some features around collaboration. At any time, you can quickly spin up an online community and invite members to that community. So think about your PLCs. Maybe you have them meeting regularly on a face-to-face basis. You also can complement that by building a quick online community and inviting those teachers to participate in an online way. So now you're spreading the time to go beyond just that face-to-face meeting. But these online communities are also accessible by students. So now you're giving them some tools to take on the initiative to collaborate themselves. Beatriz and I are in a biology course and we know we have an end of chapter test. I can spin up a quick online community of a study group, invite Beatriz and my peers to it, and we can start to collaborate like that.
Where teachers can share plans.
Yeah, sure, teachers can share plans that way as well. So a lot of you ask us this when we're presenting our platform. We do have full integration with all of the Google Apps for Education. When you're building a task as a teacher, there is a collaboration link down here. It says collaborate with Google Docs. It'll automatically open your Google Drive and you'll be able to start to use that work that you're storing in Google to collaborate with your students, with other teachers. And it works the same way with students. If they're storing things in a G Drive, they have that ability as well. We also integrate with other cloud storage features. If you're using Dropbox, we have a direct integration with that. Google Drive and OneDrive are also integrated. So you have that capability as well. The idea of student emails is becoming more and more present. If you're using Office 365, you have an immediate ability to manage those Office 365 features that your district is using, or your Google emails. So you have that capability as well. So again, another way to collaborate, messages, I mentioned, discussions, and so on. All right, around critical thinking. Can't beat the library. Beatrice mentioned it. The library, you can switch the permissions on for students to also have access to that library. So now they're not reverting to Google where you don't know what they're going to get when they do a search, to allowing them to use the library where you know that content is safe and secure because it's a library really built by you, the district. And then these features that are boxed in orange here, a student can do a search in the library, some self-study, and then save those items to their own personal collection. We're not talking a lot about parents today, but you also can switch that permission on for parents. So imagine mom and dad, who we know want to engage with kids and want to support their own children, giving them access to the library to extend some learning at home, and feeling comfortable as a district level or a teacher that they're using content that's in your own personal library, in your district library. We have a built-in rubric tool that's native to the application. Certainly helps students with critical thinking as well. They're able to look at the expectations for learning, look at that rubric, and be able to aspire to meet those higher levels that the rubric is identifying. And then finally, everything that a teacher builds in that planner, when a teacher associates a date to it, it populates a student calendar. So now the student is always aware. They can click on their calendar and know what's due, what assignments they're responsible for completing. And they have that ability to build their calendar out with personal items as well. Creativity, won't spend a lot of time here, but you can't beat our rich text editor. Really has a lot of features to allow students to be creative. And this idea of embedding Web 2.0 into that platform really starts to reinforce that. And then this is just a screenshot of a student's portfolio. So that ability to allow students to be creative and express themselves and their own passion really does exist on the platform. All right, that's the second session, folks.
So we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So we'll give you a couple of minutes. So based on the presentation Bob just made, what are some of the 21st century skills you can promote amongst your students in terms of them being more active and collaborative learners, critical thinking, and creative learners using tools such as this?
Yeah,
And
so
if
take a
one of you
moment to
wants to
respond to
just
that.
kind of comment. There's a,
Beatriz, Ernesto, thank you.
here in the middle.
Okay.
We're actually
But there's
televising it
people
via
online that
webcast.
may be listening, so.
We really like the comment that you made about don't turn it in, publish it.
Force them to publish. And using the creative tools would force students to use more of the 21st century skills, so I like that.
Nice.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does it matter which district or which schools are in, whether you have access to Dropbox and Glogster?
No.
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 You should have access.
Awesome. Thank you.
In the last part of this presentation, unless there's more people who would like to participate or comment or ask questions. In the last part of this presentation, I'm going to show you briefly the experience of Houston ISD. Houston ISD implemented a huge one-to-one program called Power Up, in which all our high school students received a laptop, 66,000 students. The majority of the students are minority, 76% Hispanic, 25% African American. Of the Hispanic, about 1/3 were native Spanish speakers, so they were English language learners. And then a very small percentage of Caucasian and Asian. And one of the big problems Houston had, number one, is a tremendous amount of dropouts. And we needed to fix that problem because we know what the destiny of dropout students is, and it's not so good, right? And the other thing we wanted to solve was we wanted to solve the discrepancy between the Caucasian and Asian students with the other minority groups in the district. So,
You're going to have to go fast through. No.
oh, sorry.
Just go through. There's about 6.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We'll skip. We don't have time.
Okay. So
We're
these-
skipping a section. I'll tell you about it when
we have a
Beatriz
very
is through.
modern gradebook that has really unique tools to kind of see the data in a very easy way. We don't have enough time for that, so we're just going to zoom through it. You can see how you can see all the grades and the color coded, so you can see who is consistently turning in assignments late, etc. And you also have to have trend reports in the gradebook. So you can see if a student is very inconsistent in their performance or very reliable, and you can also see their grades trends. And each one of these dots is interactive. When you roll over, it provides additional data. So in a glance, teachers can see how every one of their students is doing very quickly and intervene immediately. And so in sum, we have data for teachers to monitor what's happening in the class every day, complete transparency for the students. They have access to all their grades and their progress reports. And also for the district leaders, we have reports that tell you how many students log in every day, to what classes, how much time they spend, what is the time on task, what are the materials they're looking at, etc. So principals, assistant principals, central office administrators, and teachers can begin to draw connections between the usage, access to content, activities, and outcomes. So these are some results from Houston. The first column in each group, all students, phase 1 and comparison group. So these are the students who were in Power Up. They had devices, they had itslearning. These are the students who didn't. And I want to tell you, some of these schools were our top performing schools. There was a significant improvement in a year and a half of usage. And then English 1, Hispanic students, Power Up schools, non-Power Up schools, African American students. In all of the categories, there was a significant improvement of the students that had access to 24/7 technology and to high quality content lesson plans and this alignment to learning standards. The same thing for algebra. Of course, in algebra, our scores are much lower, and I'm not saying we're done, we're not done. This is just an improvement report. The students that had access to the itslearning platform and the devices significantly outscored the students who didn't. and particularly proud of the improvement of our minority students and low-income students. And then this is the Power Up Phase 2. The first year we implemented in 11 campuses. Second year, or Phase 2, we implemented in 23 additional campuses. And again, we see the same trends. The students with access to the technology significantly outperform the students with the technology. This is just in a year and a half. Our teachers were not perfect users. They were still learning, they're still navigating the platform, but just having the access to the technology, having the students become more active and more participant in their learning had a significant impact, particularly with our minority and low-income students. Yes?
So what are you using as your measure? Is that their final grade?
It's the end of course exam grades. This is all public data. Yes. Now, of course, we're all hopeful that ESSA will come through and that we will be measuring performance in other ways, because we know this is not fair. A grade doesn't tell you what the student has learned. And we know that, but we have to measure in some way. We also did focus groups and qualitative research. It was led by the University of San Diego, so a third-party research group. And what the data we got from our teachers, students, and principals is that the 24/7 access to technology and high-quality content had a significant impact. Teachers particularly were always commenting how the students were taking charge of their learning. They were searching for news, they were searching for content, and that there was a positive campus culture, that there was like an uplifting feeling in the campuses since the technology was introduced. Of course, the central office delivered master courses. It takes teachers a little time to learn a platform. It's not an app, it's a platform, you know, there's many functions. And so central office has a very important role to play in the change management piece, and creating master courses allows teachers to be active in the platform immediately without them being master users yet. We had, of course, a large number of open education resources, but also we ingested a lot of publisher content, and the library made a significant difference for us. And we had schools that were featured in the 2012 Dropout Nation program for PBS. Sharpstown was one of our schools featured, and it was called the Dropout Factory. Sharpstown went from a D school to a B school in 4 years after the technology implementation, and of course, excellent school leadership, right? It's not just the technology. It's the combination of group of people and systems who shared standardized digital resources and tools to support 21st century learning. In other words, I like this, an efficient and effective society. So the technology is an important partner, but it's just a partner of the people that are implementing the solutions. So are we there yet? 21st century readiness is much more than grades. We are not trying to just improve grades. We are trying to prepare our students for a difficult future, for a challenging future that is constantly changing. So we're not there yet, but we think that thinking of metacognition, learning to learn, and being a participant in your own education is very important, and the technology should be supporting that. That was our last question. If you have the time to respond, we'd love to hear from you, and we're also here for a little time if you want to yes.
So you were showing those performance charts,
Yes.
right? Are those performance charts available at all to the student, or in a way that the teacher can share them with the parent for discussion?
All the data in the course about the student is available to the student and to the parents. And that's an important piece, we think, for 21st century learning, right?
So folks, we realize that we shared a lot of screenshots with you. Really want to invite you to our booth. It's 2352. We have staff from the Boston office there manning the booth. So if you'd like to see some of the platform in a live way, certainly stop by the booth. I'm going to be here a little bit after this breakfast, and I'd be happy to show you some of the platform if you're interested as well. We certainly have capable staff there at the booth, but it has been a pleasure sharing some of these things with you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your experience here at ISTE, and thank you all for coming.